Well, this is our 11th podcast of the Spine Bros. This is Dr. William Sonstein of NSPC Brain and Spine Surgery, and I have here...
Richard Obedian of Island Spine and Sports.
Wow, and we have a special guest today. Thank you very much for coming here, Ms. Higgins.
Thanks for having me.
It is very nice to see you, and welcome here to our podcast.
Thank you. It's nice to see you both as well, especially out of the office.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Right.
Ms. Higgins is a patient of ours, and how did you originally come to my office? I remember sometime in the 2024 at the end of the year.
Right, in December. So I kind of have a little bit of a strange story because I've watched some of the podcasts before, and I know a lot of people experience pain and things like that. That's totally not my story at all, and it was a really fast process. I was at work one day, and I was sitting for an extended period of time at a meeting, and I got up, and I noticed that my foot felt strange. A lot of heaviness. It was sort of feeling floppy. That's probably the best word I could use to describe it. And I really just chalked it up to sitting all day and maybe something was pinched or things like that. I have rheumatoid arthritis and inflammatory osteoarthritis, so there's always something going on someplace. So I really didn't think too much of it. Came back, sat down for an extended period of time again, and it progressively got worse throughout the day. And by the end of that day, my foot was actually slapping on the floor when I was walking. So I thought that was sort of strange. But again, sort of chalked it up to, all right, I was sitting all day, something's weird.
No pain in your legs?
None.
No
none
numbness,
at all. No.
Tingling?
No, the best word I can use is that my foot felt floppy.
Floppy.
Not pins and needles, nothing like that. It just felt floppy when I was walking.
Did you have any back pain?
No, none. No, I had zero pain.
But in the past, you had some back pain in the past.
Again, with the two different arthritises that I have, and I was in a car accident when I was 18, so there's always something. So those minor aches and pains really don't faze me
because tough it out.
Right, that's just part of my normal, unfortunately.
What was new was the leg numbness and weakness and this floppiness of your leg.
Exactly, and it really wasn't
classic foot drop.
Right, and it really wasn't even so much numb, it just felt heavy.
Just a slapping kind of gait.
Exactly. And I was actually with my co-teacher that day at the meeting, and by the end of the day, I said, you know what's weird? She said that your foot's been slapping the floor all day, so it was audible enough even to her. So I hadn't even said anything, oh, this feels weird, but by the end of the day, it had gotten worse enough that she was hearing it as I was walking.
Had you had any prior trauma or falls or anything that could have maybe incited this?
So about a year prior, I had a very strange fall at work. So I'm a sixth grade teacher, and one day my co-teacher and I dropped the kids off at recess, and very spur of the moment, we both decided to play kickball with them. And so, of course...
It's courageous of you.
Yeah, well, we're a lot of fun.
I was a former kickball champion.
I would enjoy going back to camp and playing that, actually. Yeah.
So, of course, the kids divided us up. We were on opposite teams. And so, of course, I had to show how competitive I am.
It's good to know kids still play kickball.
Oh, yeah. So, of course, I went and I was up and kicked the ball, and it went flying. It would have been a home run, and I went tearing off to first base and got halfway to first and completely flipped over my own feet and landed almost with my face on the blacktop.
That was a whole year before.
That must have been quite a scene.
Oh, yeah. I scared the kids.
And you didn't have any symptoms after that, really, like of your leg or your back? I mean, nothing got exacerbated or anything like that?
Of my back, no, but my knees were all skinned up, my hands were skinned up, and I broke my wrist in two places.
Okay, so
that's
you really
how hard
were
I felt.
Injured, yes.
Right, but again...
But not the leg, not the back.
Right, I hadn't felt anything in my foot, but now, looking back... it was the same foot that I had the drop foot in. So I wonder if...
That may be a red herring, though.
It could be. I don't know. So, but aside from that, to answer your question, I really hadn't had anything traumatic or major happen. Right. It sort of just came out of nowhere that one day in November.
Did you have back pain as a child?
No, not really. The only issue I ever really had with my back was... Again, I was in a car accident when I was 18, but that was more cervical. And then I had issues with sciatica, particularly when I was pregnant, both times.
You saw a chiropractor in the past?
Yes, yeah.
What's the difference between gaga and kickball?
Come on. Don't tell me you're asking that
I'm
question.
serious. I mean, like now we're bringing up
They're
kickball.
totally different
But
games.
I don't even know because
Exactly.
my kids always say, "Oh, I played Gaga at camp," But what does that mean?
You need
Gaga's
to
like
play
a
Gaga
form
in a
of-
pit.
It's like a volleyball almost.
But you don't kick the ball. And then
No, there's no kick.
There's no kicking. It's all
No.
upper arm use.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, this was good old.
You
He's
throw
a
the ball.
neurosurgeon. He doesn't understand
But do you
sports.
throw the ball at somebody like to try to hit them?
You don't really throw the ball, but you kind of you use your fists to hit the ball, and the rule is it's got to hit the opponent below the knees. You can use your hands to protect yourself, but as long as your legs don't get hit, you're protected.
I gotcha. Okay,
Yeah,
I just
I was
wanted
also
to
a Gaga champion in camp.
I've always wanted to know. This was an
I have the
opportunity
sores
to
on my
learn.
knuckles to prove it.
I would like to, maybe I'll
Yeah.
watch a game or two and learn about it. Anyway,
They're
so
very different games. Kickball is more analogous to baseball,
kickball is more like baseball.
but with instead of hitting a ball with a bat, you're kicking a big red ball.
See, this is the whole thing about orthopods. They're basically they're jocks.
Yes,
All of them are
yes.
jocks. We're the
There is.
nerds. We're the neurosurgeons. We don't know anything about sports.
Some things never change.
I've never
There you
had a
go.
conversation about sports in my life about any like stats of baseball or how the Mets doing or anything like that. It's like I sit there and listen to
They're
him
doing
with
well.
the,
They're in first place.
with talking to the nurses
See, I'm a
who all know
hockey
about
girl,
it.
so there you go.
Now I did like the
Hockey
Flyers
girls
at
are a
one
little
point.
scary.
Hockey, well, they're aggressive.
They're very
I'm a
aggressive.
hockey mom, so
The
there you
hockey
go.
mom, even more.
Exactly.
Even more so.
All right,
Exactly.
well, continuing on, we diverge. We
So
digress.
anyhow, so that whole episode with my foot happened on a Wednesday. Again, I didn't think much of it. I went to work on Thursday, and I guess with moving around a little bit more, it really didn't bother me as much, seemed to be getting a little better. Friday, I actually happened to be at another full day meeting, so I was sitting all day again, and the exact same thing happened, and it proceeded to get much worse. So much worse that by lunchtime I had called my general practitioner and said something strange
Dr.
is going.
Saglambini.
Exactly.
Yeah, she's
I
great.
said something very strange is going on with my foot. I need somebody to take a look at it. So again, that was a Friday, and they got me in first thing Saturday morning.
You have Saturday morning hours. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Dr. Saglamini she sent you to me? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, then Doctor was worth,
And Jimmy Rogers, who's a
and
good friend
Jimmy
of
Rogers,
ours
sure,
too.
yeah,
The
the chiropractor.
Exactly.
Well, she's personal friends with Jimmy Rogers.
These
Yes.
chiropractors, they get a lot of patience.
Yep.
Anyway, going on.
So it was actually not Dale that day that I saw. It was her daughter, Ariana.
Who's very nice.
She's fantastic. Took an X-ray and, excuse me, said, I don't know exactly what I'm looking at. Her words, it was funny. She said, but something is very wonky. She said, I need you to go and get an
Wonky.
MRI.
It's true.
So I walked out of there on Saturday with a script for the MRI. For some strange reason, it took a very long time to get the authorization for the MRI. Normally, it's a day or two. It took a week and a half. So
It's getting worse and worse, believe me.
Yeah.
We have a lot of struggle trying to get approved.
You know what I've noticed that internists sometimes have a much tougher time getting MRI approval than a specialist.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
also,
we can usually get it much faster.
But then
we also
the-
know the right code words to say to the
Right.
insurance companies to get it approved
well,
faster.
foot drop is
but
one
foot
thing.
Foot drop is kind of a urgent one.
If they're going to say, oh, no, you need 6 weeks of physical therapy first before we get the MRI.
And neurological changes are a big deal.
So again, for some strange reason, it took that long. So I didn't end up going for the MRI until the night before Thanksgiving. And
So what kind of interval was that, basically,
so
between when we first noticed the symptoms and when you got the MRI?
it was literally 2 weeks to the day.
2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it would have been a lot sooner had I been able to get the
In
authorization.
the meantime, your foot drop wasn't getting any better.
No.
You're still, but were you starting to get any pains in your back or your leg?
None.
Just the weakness and the numbness.
Never,
No
never,
numbness?
No
no
numbness.
numbness.
Just
Just the
weakness.
weakness and the drop. It's
Painless
sort of
foot drop.
Yeah, that's why it's so strange. So a lot of people say, "Oh, I've had this pain for the longest time," and I didn't have that experience at all.
Did she also recommend an MRI of your head?
No, that was a whole other separate
It was
situation.
done later. Okay.
Yeah. So anyhow, so I went for the MRI, and before I was even home, I had gotten a text that the report was already read. It also helps that Swanger Passeri is fantastic, and I have a good friend there as well. So she kind of pushed that along for me. So I was reading this very lengthy report, only some of which I understood, but being the teacher that I am, I was researching. I had one tab open, researching things.
A lot of
and-
medical lingo in the
Exactly,
reports.
and I
Yeah.
knew it wasn't fantastic. And my husband happened to be with Jimmy Rogers when I got the report.
Oh, really?
So I texted it
They're good friends. They play
exactly,
golf
yeah.
together. Whatever.
Yep. Texted it to Jimmy, and he said, "Oh, okay, you're going to be needing immediate surgery,"
Really?
which was not the news I was expecting on hearing.
That's like most chiropractors.
Come in, we'll go for
don't-
20
Exactly.
treatments,
Well, I've known him
and
for a
then maybe
really
we'll
long
consider the
time.
surgery.
So he said, "You're going to need to see people, and you're going to be having surgery." And I said, "I don't have time for that. There's too much going on in my life." But again, he recommended both of you. And so then that was the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. The Saturday after Thanksgiving, that's when Ariana called me with the results of the report and said the exact same thing. And both separately recommended both of you.
It's impressive.
Yeah. So it was meant to be.
The worlds were colliding.
There you go.
You know, and it's funny what you said before about how, you do not have time for this.
Right.
Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans.
Absolutely.
And so it's good that you got in to see Dr. Sonstein and me. And,
It's not that common, people, if it's a spine origin of a foot drop, to have a painless foot drop, and there's other causes of foot drops, that could be happening. Like we could ask you, were you in a certain position? Were you crossing your legs for a long time? Because sometimes you can get something called a peripheral foot drop, where you actually the nerve around the fibula, peroneal nerve, controls the foot function, and that can also cause a foot drop as well, and may not be the spine.
Right.
You could have a stroke.
You could have a stroke, but then you didn't have any other associated symptoms other than the foot drop. So, and then you got the MRI, and then you got the results, and you sent. And
you want to talk about what the MRI showed?
Yes, the MRI was done. That showed a couple things that actually are quite common that we see. One is called a synovial cyst, which we've talked about synovial cysts here before, and they're very common. And they're simply cysts that extend from the joint itself in the back. They're always from the back.
From the facet joint.
From the facet joint, and it was at L4-5, which is the most common level. And you also had a little bit of a misalignment of your bone called a spondylolisthesis, or slip spine in Greek. And that basically is also very common. So you had those two problems, and with that, you had compression of the nerve and the actual MRI, the cyst itself was very off to the side, which was getting what we call the L4 nerve root, in addition to the nerve that was descending below. The L4 nerve root usually causes the foot drop compression. The L5 usually is the toe.
The big toe.
So, but you were getting both. This was a big cyst. It was on the right side. It correlated exactly with your symptoms. Why now did it start causing this? That's a big question,
Right.
Why now, You had this thing for a while. These things are degenerative things. They develop slowly, So it was interesting in that regard.
Yeah, it reached the point of no return.
That's what happens.
And
They just,
and you're a very tough woman. You don't complain very much.
Well, like I said, I have a lot going on.
You have a lot going on. You don't have time for
you
this.
didn't have time.
Right, didn't
This
have time
was
for this.
nonsense.
Exactly.
You just, you're emotionally tough, and you said, "Oh, I'll just get through this," and it wasn't getting better, unfortunately. And it's a tribute to you that you were able to function at a very high level despite this significant problem in your back.
At least you brought it to the attention. That was the as soon as you could, and got things done as soon as you could, as well.
Right.
So in any event, you saw, I think you had passed by my office first, and we examined you, and, besides taking the history and everything, I just reviewed my notes on it, that you had something we called, at least in my exam, was 4- out of 5 strength. And that just simply means that you had some resistance, but minimal to my, testing your strength. So that's pretty weak, and that does cause what you experienced, a slapping gait.
Yeah, she was walking with a slapping type of a gait.
Yes.
She had significant weakness of both the EHL, which is the big toe extensor, and also the tibialis anterior, which is what causes you to get the foot drop. That brings your foot back.
And when we saw you,
and the left side was totally fine.
Left side was fine.
Left side was totally fine.
This thing, was much more off to the side, which we call lateral. And I think that's why, that was not affecting, obviously, the other side as well,
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before. When you have pathology in your back, location is key.
Right.
And so where that nerve was where that synovial cyst was causing the compression of the nerve root was in more of the motor aspect. And that's why you weren't having any sensory deficit. There's and some people have their herniate or the disc herniation or the cyst pressing on the DRG, which is the dorsal root ganglion. And that is a very sensitive, extremely painful area to have pressure on it. And thank God you didn't have the disc there.
I mean, look, you could have had a variety of symptoms develop. This is the way it manifested, and everything. But again, you have to always think about other causes of the foot drop when it's painless. But when you have the associated pain or numbness, that's oftentimes associated with it. Then it's most likely coming from your spine at that point.
And by the time we saw you, it was early December. We got you to the operating room fairly quickly. It's one of the few times that we agree with the chiropractor that you needed urgent attention to this.
I don't think this was we talked about. We did obviously we discussed other options besides just surgery, because I think that sometimes people are just taken aback. They want to know if there's other things they could try, and
epidurals.
This was not a case for an epidural, because first of all, you weren't having pain. Usually epidurals are given for pain. Number two, physical therapy, it wasn't getting any better. And we obviously didn't want it to get worse, because once it gets to the point where there's no function, then you can't reverse it, or it's very hard to reverse that function. So you need your foot.
Right. It was a very fast process because, like I said, I had gotten the call on the Saturday right after Thanksgiving, called your office first on Monday. I was in to see you Wednesday, you on Thursday, and then there was actually an opening. I think it was the next day, and then the following Tuesday. And so, typical teacher answer, I said, I have parent-teacher conferences. I can't have surgery right now. So
That's
pushed
a devoted
it off.
teacher.
Right. I pushed it off a week. But
hope those parents appreciate that.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Thankfully, though, everything aligned because it was getting much worse very quickly. So when I saw both of you, there was that weakness, there was the foot drop, but by the morning of the surgery, I could barely lift my foot at all. So it needed to be done.
Yes.
Yeah, no question.
At that point, I had to make time for it.
Yeah, you had no choice.
So how did you, what were your feelings before spine surgery? What went through your mind, knowing, and what was your experience just making it to the hospital and getting set up in the operating room?
Of course, I was nervous, but like I said, with my history with the arthritises and stuff, I unfortunately am not a stranger to the emergency room. I've had surgery I've lost count, 20-something times already.
Wow.
So there's always that nervousness, but I'd been through it before. So it wasn't like this was my first surgery and this was a big one,
Although it was a big surgery.
It's a big surgery.
The definition of a big operation
is any operation.
Any operation done on you.
Especially any operation on the spine, because
exactly.
anything could happen in any spine surgery if it's not done properly.
A minor operation is one done on somebody else.
Right, exactly.
That's right.
I think there was a little bit extra nerves kicking in that day because it was the spine. And then, of course, you start thinking the what if, that kind of a whole scenario. But I tried to, put it in perspective, knowing that I needed it to be done, especially when I woke up that morning. And like I said, when the foot drop was like this, it was okay, whatever. But then when I woke up that morning and my foot, there was that much of a difference. It was, I said to my husband, okay, I'm glad today's the day.
You're doing the right thing.
Exactly.
Right, and we did it at NYU Langone.
NYU.
Yes, and they were fantastic.
Formerly known as Winthrop.
Right.
Correct.
That's where my oldest son was born, too.
That's very nice. Yeah, I heard they have a great program there for
they do,
delivery.
Yeah. Did you first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
What was best?
We ended up doing a laminectomy.
We did an L4 laminectomy.
We removed the cyst.
The cyst was, people think it's like a fluid balloon. It's not. It's usually full of grungy material.
Joint material.
Sometimes it's like a jelly kind of material. Yours looked like a little balloon on MRI. It was kind of like a nice sort of roundish thing. But the point of the cyst, the one thing when you go in and do the laminectomy, you always have to realize that the nerve is always in front of the cyst. So you have to find that nerve. So it's going to be in front of you. So once you identify the nerve, then you sort of separate out cysts. Sometimes you can't get every little tiny piece. You want to just essentially remove the mass effect of it.
It can be a little tricky because the cyst can look very similar to nerve tissue.
I remember you saying that. You said it's a lot easier in medical texttextbooks when things are different colors.
Yes.
This
I
was,
remember you
this is
telling
not
me
that
that
way.
afterwards.
This was and your nerve root, looking, and I always read my notes, it was very irritated. It was very angry looking, very red and swollen. And that's, obviously it started an inflammatory process,
crushed.
and it was crushed. And so the thing we did, we made sure the two nerve roots, the L4 and the L5, the descending one and the one leaving at that level, were fully decompressed. That's the key, is getting that nerve decompressed and making sure there's a nice, basically unroofing of the canal where the nerve runs, so there's no pressure. And once we did that, because you had that slip and you had basically instability, we had to do what we call a fusion, which is just simply connecting the two bone segments together with titanium screws, which are actually not difficult to put in under X-ray guidance, and
Rods.
with rods. And the art of the surgery, as far as, I think we talk about this all the time, is getting the decompression done properly. Putting in the hardware, doing the fusion.
That's the fun part of it.
It's the fun part. That's like the part where we, kind of can be a little more relaxed. The hype is less as much.
Right.
Even though you got to do it properly, obviously.
What's funny is that patients always are worried about the metal.
They're worried about the
and
metal.
screws than they are about the decompression. But the decompression is really the key to the operation. The key to the success, as far as getting your neurological function back, is, like you said, successfully decompressing that nerve root and making sure it's completely free. You don't have to remove every little morsel of the cyst. Sometimes, if it's very adherent to the dura or to the nerve root, you can leave a little bit of it because it's not causing pressure, and really you don't want to injure the nerve in the process. So you don't want to just pull on it willy-nilly and get a CSF leak or avulse the nerve root. Those are bad things to happen. And so we're very careful in terms of removing any pressure on the nerve root, but you don't have to remove every little tiny bit of that cyst. It's not the kind of cyst that becomes a malignancy.
Right.
It doesn't become a cancer. It's not nothing you ever have to worry about. And you remove the bulk of it anyway.
And because you're fusing, you're stopping the abnormal. Right, because you're stopping the abnormal motion is driving the formation of this degenerative cyst. That's sort of what it is. It's like the instability sort of drives the formation of this. So that was taken away. So yeah, you don't have to worry about recurrence of the cyst.
And the operation went beautifully. Very smoothly. It didn't take as long as we thought it would. And I think we were done within a couple hours. And you went to the recovery room, and you woke up. And did you notice any change right away, or did it take some time before you were feeling?
No, I was able to move my foot again right away.
Like normal.
Mm-hmm.
That is a home run.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That doesn't always happen.
No, it doesn't always happen.
And so we like to be like Amazon. We like to under-promise and then over-deliver. So we tell you, we don't know if it's going to get better.
Right.
We're hoping it's going to get better. Because you don't want to set the expectation game too high, because you'll be very disappointed if you wake up and you're the same as you were pre-op.
Right.
So, and sometimes it takes time, you know. But what you had going for you is that you were young. Even despite your other medical problems, you weren't diabetic. You're not malnourished. You're very healthy.
And it didn't happen for like months and months and months.
You'd only had it for about less than 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we got to it early. The timing was right.
Yeah, things like that.
You're a good patient. You have good. What we say in medicine is you have good protoplasm. So and you healed well, and the fact that you had such an amazing neurological recovery so quickly is really a tribute to the surgeons who did it, but really more a tribute to you as a patient, that because we do this operation all the time, and not everybody who has a foot drop gets immediate relief.
That's very nice, and how long?
So it's very satisfying to do that.
How long were you in the hospital for after the?
Let's see. The surgery was on a Friday, and I think I came home Sunday. I was determined to not be
excellent.
Through Monday.
That's better than the average patient.
That's better than the average. We have some post-operative drains in. They
I think she went home with the drain.
I went home with the drains, and then one of them ended up falling out. But it's it was.
That's totally normal sometimes to go home with the drain, because it's better to get you out of the hospital and then take out the drain in the office that week than have you be in that hospital and be exposed to all
the hospital's nice, but you're always better off sleeping in your own bed.
Always
And plus you have good help at home. Your husband's great.
Yeah, that's lucky.
and so you're in a good situation.
Absolutely.
So were you happy with the care? Everything went well in the hospital in terms of like, did they get you up right away?
Oh, they
much?
were fantastic at
That's
the hospital.
fantastic.
They really were. And
They have a very good physical therapy team there.
Yeah, they get you up right away.
Right. And I remember when the physical therapist came sort of to be one of the, barriers I had to overcome to be able to be eligible to leave. And then they wanted to determine what I was going to need at home. I did everything, and he said, wait a minute, when did you have this surgery? I told him, he said, wow, you're doing really well. And then came back, he goes, you don't need me. You don't need any PT at home. You're fine. I was able to go up the stairs that I needed to be able to access things in my house and get in the house. And
it's funny, a lot of the physical therapists at that hospital send us patients because they see how the patients are doing, and they see from all different types of surgeons. So, we love getting referrals from the physical therapist in the hospital. Like one of the physical therapists sent us his dad to do a laminate, and he also had weakness and got better. So, it's that's very satisfying from our point of view.
Absolutely, that's the best way of getting
the best referral is one from another medical professional who sees your results in the hospital.
Well, it's the same thing. I mean, I had two different caregivers. One that was a friend wasn't seeing me medically at the time. And my primary care physician all recommending you guys as a team.
Guys, yeah.
So that says a lot.
That's very nice. We appreciate that. I tell you, that's the way to.
And
continue on.
You had an excellent post-operative course. You were like one of our easiest patients. We would get serial X-rays when you came in. The hardware looked excellent. You were feeling better. It became almost like a social visit when you came in because
exactly.
you were doing so well. And I know you're gradually getting your life back.
Right.
You went back to teaching how long after the operation?
Well, I had the holiday break.
Right.
And then I think I stayed home 2 weeks after that. So
mid-January?
Exactly, yeah.
That's pretty good. Almost like a month after the operation, you were pretty much back to teaching full-time.
That's very good. That's a very good point because people always ask, how long is the recovery from the surgery?
Every patient is different.
Every patient is different. This is a pretty straightforward basic surgery. This is a lumbar fusion, one level. So how long does it take to recover from this? I tell patients, it takes about 4 to 6 weeks to get over did
you have a lot of pain post
surgery? The incision and everything else, and that kind of stuff.
Didn't have a lot of pain. I really only took. I could probably count on one hand. I was going to say maybe a smidge on my second hand of how many times I actually required pain medication. But what I relied on more was the muscle relaxer because I found that my muscles would tighten up, and even still. This far out, every once in a while, that still happens, and I know that that's still part of the healing process.
Because to get to that area, we got to go through a lot of layers of muscle.
Exactly.
And it heals, but it's never as good as it was when God made you. So there's always going to be some scar tissue there, and it's like a weak part of your body, especially in the first few months afterwards, that you have to kind of let it recover.
Right.
So if you overdo it, you're going to feel it in your back.
But I think that people when they get rid of their symptoms of their leg, and your symptom of your leg, was weakness, but people have severe pain. If they get rid of the pain, that's usually the disabling thing. People can sort of deal with chronic back pain,
right?
But it's when that terrible leg pain or leg numbness or obviously improvement of weakness, I think people are pretty happy with that.
Oh, absolutely.
And they can deal with the incisional kind of soreness for the time it takes to get over it,
Right. At the beginning, I found that anything that I did for too long would make me uncomfortable. If I sat for too long, if I stood for too long, if I walked for too long. So sort of changing up whatever I was doing definitely helped with that. And now, like I said, I'll still get, and I can feel that it's muscle because it's almost muscle spasms. So I have, a heat pack. So when I sort of overdo it, if I'm gardening or doing things around the house and I push myself a little bit too far, the heat usually helps tremendously. And I'm still using the bone stimulating machine. Dominic told me use it until I run out of batteries. So I'm on treatment 200. I forget what. So
you're healing beautifully. The bone stimulator is like an adjunct to get the fusion to take. You just wear it for 30 minutes a day. And the interesting thing about that is that, bone stimulators kind of started in the late 60s, early 70s after the Vietnam War. And there's a lot of research done on these Vietnam vets who had horrible injuries, gunshot wounds, and had difficult fractures that weren't healing, and they would go on to need amputations. So the U.S. government, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, they invested millions of dollars in trying to get these fractures to heal without leading to an amputation. And they found that putting electric current across that bone would cause the fracture to heal faster.
Wow.
And when you have a fusion, it's almost like we're tricking your body. There was a fracture there. We wanted to get it to heal. So it seems like this voodoo device. You put this like little external electrical stimulation device on your back.
Right.
You don't really even feel the current or anything, but it's giving you enough energy that's causing the bone cells to get activated and do their thing.
That's interesting.
And so, like Dominic said, Dominic's my PA. Like Dominic said, your insurance company is good enough to give it to you, and thank God it's healing beautifully, and you're going on to fuse nicely.
We used to implant them in patients
Really?
where we put a wire underneath where the bone material was packed down on, and then we would at some point, like 6 months
That
later,
was that you would need a second operation to take it out.
remove
you have to
right.
remove it. Yeah, it's a small thing, obviously, to open up the incision, but it's a pain in the butt to have to do that. And then the problem is you leave the wires in forever, so you always have hardware in technically, or those little wires, because you can't remove them, you can't just pull them out,
Right.
So that wasn't
Sometimes
such a
the
great
wires
thing.
would break when you were taking them out.
But the only reason why it was good was, in one respect, was because you didn't have to worry about compliance of the patient wearing the stimulator.
Yeah, because it's inside of you. You can't, it's constantly stimulating.
Yeah, exactly.
We have to trust you to wear that device.
Right.
But you're a good school teacher, so you
Exactly,
do
yeah.
exactly what the doctor says.
Exactly.
Did you go for outpatient physical therapy?
I didn't because
Her friend's a chiropractor.
Well, when I had come, at my first few post-op appointments, it was deemed
didn't
that I
really
was
need it.
doing
You
so
really-
well
some
that I
people just
really
don't
didn't
need
need
it,
it.
otherwise
Right.
you're too busy.
Exactly.
Your recovery was so good
Right.
that what was a physical therapist going to do?
Right.
You already had your full strength back almost immediately.
Did your students know you had undergone spine surgery?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they
Did
were
they treat
worried
you a little
about me.
nicer that time
Oh,
after
yeah.
you got back
Yeah.
to work?
Yeah. This group was a great
Sixth
group
grade,
of
sixth
kids.
grade.
Did you
Kids
have
are
like
good kids.
30 apples on your desk afterward, basically?
Pretty much, my co-teacher and the students, behind my back, they put together a basket. And it was almost like a test of how well do you know Mrs. Higgins. They put in all snacks that they knew I liked
Oh, that's
or
nice.
thought I would like. So it was either my favorite or their favorite.
What's your
and they
favorite?
sent me the purple Doritos.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Those are the best.
That's-
Cool Ranch.
that's my-
Cool Ranch.
No, not Cool Ranch.
Ranch is blue.
Cool Ranch
Yes,
is blue.
Cool Ranch
What's
is
the purple
blue.
one?
That's
the
a lot of-
spicy one.
The
Habanero?
I forget what they're. I don't know. I call
Chili.
them the purple Doritos. It's sweetened, spicy chili,
I
sweet
like,
chili.
I
That's
like
what it
this
is.
Yeah.
late July brand now. I'm really into it. There's this,
Yeah, the
they have
lime.
I used to have that, but the one I really like now is the red sriracha one.
Oh, I haven't
They're
had
really
that one.
hot. They're intense and they're great. So I like that
A little
one.
too spicy for me.
Oh, I like it though.
I had a bad experience as a kid with hot
Really?
peppers.
That's
yeah?
crazy.
My dad was a big fan of hot peppers.
No,
I think you got a little, a little euphoria from it, from the endorphin surge you get from eating those things.
that's why I'm always eating.
And I thought I had a bell pepper, thinking I can handle peppers. What's the big deal?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Let me
You
try
ate
one of
the
those.
hottest pepper known to
Oh my
mankind
God!
in Persia.
I thought I almost died. And ever since then, I've kind of shied away from really, really super spicy.
Really
foods.
interesting.
guess it wasn't a bell pepper.
Because you love spicy food because of your native
Persians,
cuisine.
Persians are not. Their food is not spicy. You're confusing us with Indians.
Well, I mean, but there's a sort of a little bit of overlap.
No,
But actually, you're right. I mean, it's true.
go to a Persian restaurant.
I've gone.
It's not super spicy.
Well, it's tasty.
It's tasty. It is tasty.
So now it's been
It's been over 7 months.
7 months. So where do you think you're at right now? You're just
She's ready to
basically-
get back to her life. She's
You're back-
gonna go on a cruise.
Oh, she's going
You're
on
going
a
away.
cruise.
Tell us about your vacation that's coming up.
Yeah, we're leaving on Saturday, going to Miami, doing our first cruise ever.
It'll be hot in Miami.
My parents, they live in near Key West.
It's your first cruise
It's
ever?
105.
First cruise ever.
Oh, you're gonna have a great time.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm a cruiser, so it's a lot of it's like an all inclusive. It's like a floating hotel.
Exactly.
So it'll be nice.
Oh, it'll be great.
And your
Right.
kids are how old now?
25 and 21.
And they're all coming with you?
Yes, we're all going
Oh, that's
together.
a great family trip.
Yeah, this was our
Yeah,
big
and-
holiday present.
And they're not
really nice.
angry going with you.
They're going on a cruise
I know,
for free.
I understand
Their
that.
parents are paying.
I know, but my
Exactly.
kids somehow may seem like it's like a personal affront that we're going with you. Well, how dare you invite us?
Well, I'll let you
You
know
did not
after we're
raise them
done,
right.
but I
Mrs.
don't.
Higgins raised her kids
Well, my kids
correctly.
don't.
They seem very excited.
That's not
Yeah.
exactly true. But they don't. The kids don't. After a period of time, they just don't seem like they want to hang out with.
They
you
don't
anymore.
appreciate. The problem with kids is that when they're young, you have to take them drag them to all these birthday parties, and you're suffering. And then when they're finally cool enough to hang out with, they want nothing to do with you.
However, though, we're going on a trip next summer, and my daughter initially, who's 14, had said, forget, I'm never, whatever, I'm never going to go with you again. She asked to go on the trip. So,
to the Galapagos
so
Islands?
she's going to go.
Can
That's
I
a
go
great
on that trip?
You can go.
I'm surprised the other kids don't want to go on that trip. That's a phenomenal
No, because
trip.
they don't want to get out of bed till noon. So
I know, but they're missing out.
well.
It's a once in a life. It's like a
I
bucket list
agree.
kind of a trip.
I agree.
I didn't go until I was 57.
Well, hey,
You have to do it now while you're young and healthy. Travel is really good.
Travel's a lot
I know
of work.
Dr. Sonstein just came back from Greece.
Wow.
He had a great time, right? How was
we
Santorini,
it's-
Naxos,
it's
Athens?
so gorgeous there. It's such a beautiful, beautiful country.
Was it hot in the summer?
It's very hot, but it's drier, so it's more tolerable.
It's a dry heat.
but it's really hot there.
It's like over 100.
But you'll enjoy the Caribbean because you're always going to be near water.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
we have excursions at every port. Kids are excited. My
So, like,
husband's
And you're going to
excited.
go zip lining, right?
The boys are ziplining. I am not
I
ziplining.
like
but
if-
you
if you
did
go
give me
ziplining-
medical
I've given
clearance
I've
to
given you the
zipline.
clearance to go
Yes,
zipline.
you did.
If you go ziplining, I would love a video of that because that would be a great promotional thing. Say, look, you can have spine surgery and then you can go ziplining.
I told my son he could wear my Meta glasses and video the zip line. So
You
I'll
have
send
those
you
Meta
that.
glasses?
Yeah, I just got
Do
them.
they?
Actually,
What do those actually do?
everything.
Like what?
So they'll take video, they'll take pictures. I wore them one day in the store, and I held up something and said, "Tell me more about this product." And the AI in my ear told me everything about the product.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Meta glasses.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
So are they sunglasses also, or are they just
The
regular
ones I
glasses?
got are the sunglass
Do you
ones.
see anything in your vision, peripheral vision? Like is there like a little like the Terminator kind of thing
No.
where you have like all this information?
It just goes into
There's
your ear.
buttons on the stems, but you don't see anything. It's not like VR goggles or anything like that.
This is not virtual. This is not virtual
No.
reality. It's just
No, it's
pure
AI.
It's AI
AI.
information.
Through the glasses.
Did these
And-
just come
and-
out?
and-
They're fairly new, yeah.
Fairly new.
And it responds to what you say to it. So
Mm-hmm.
if you ask a question like, "Tell me more about this product,"
Yes.
it will. And do you have to focus on the product itself? Like
You hold it up so
hold
the
it up.
glasses take a picture of it, and then
It'll tell you.
If you wear glasses, do you put these over the glasses? You have to wear these in lieu of glasses.
There's, I think, 3 different versions. So I got the sunglass ones. You can get ones that you can put prescription lenses in, and then there's ones with the transition. So it's your prescription or clear, and then it'll go to the sunglasses when you go outside.
And we'll also record. Mm-hmm. Better watch out. They could come to your office recording you.
Yeah, that's
The light
that's
comes
true.
on, though, so you'll know someone's recording it.
Do you have to push a button to basically ask it something, or does it automatically pick up your voice on the thing?
No, it automatically picks up your voice.
Wow. So you're just like wandering around like, hey, so you don't have to use, so obviously you can use your phone, but sometimes
Right.
it's a pain in the ass to use your phone. So it's good to.
Right. I was getting other sunglasses, and then they had a buy one, get one 40% off or whatnot. And I kept saying to my husband, I really, really think these glasses are pretty cool. So I got them the 40% off, and we figured for the cruise that would be great doing the excursions. I
Yeah.
won't have to hold my hand up with my phone. I could record things. I could take pictures.
And it connects to you can just download it to your phone. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's pretty cool stuff. My husband calls me
Is it all-
Inspector Gadget because I like all
is
these
it all,
things.
Is it all on Facebook? It's connected to Facebook.
I mean, it is. It's
'Cause
through
it's
that
through
because it's
Meta.
Meta. But yeah, it's a separate app. But
But that Meta is doing pretty well. I think
Their stock went up dramatically.
I think
today.
Mark Zuckerberg is going to be the richest person in the world
Probably.
today. I mean, unbelievable.
They really had good earnings today.
Well, that's interesting. There's lots of good toys.
Elon Musk better
to
watch
buy.
out.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know much about that stuff. I do use that Chat GPT. That thing is great. You can ask it anything and it just it's an amazing thing. My kids are pros at it, I have to say.
I have 2 things in my refrigerator tonight that I wanted to use for dinner, so I used ChatGPT yesterday. What dinner could I make? And I put those two ingredients in, and that's what I'm making for dinner tonight.
Excellent. That's great. I mean,
I use it all the time.
Do you find that your students are using ChatGPT to cheat and like write essays?
I was going to ask that same question, actually.
So I teach 6th grade, but in my district, 6th grade's still in the elementary school.
Okay.
So I know that they're using ChatGPT on the outside. But because it's different, since it's not middle school, we're doing more of that work in school. So our district, we use a program called Magic School AI. So I use that, and my co-teacher and I are teaching them how to use artificial intelligence responsibly, ethically, and use that as a tool to help them learn rather than replace the learning.
Because they can write a whole essay in a matter of minutes.
Seconds.
Seconds.
And then they can modify it, like dumb it down to make it like
Right.
seem like they wrote it.
Exactly.
You know, I'm sure there's many little tricks.
Oh, there's lots.
But
And
anything-
more
and
than we even know as
can
teachers.
can teachers check to see if it was like, how do you
There's
check
a,
and see?
there's a program I think you can check. You know, from
Was this written by AI?
I think that my kids told me in college they use that kind of thing
So,
to prove it's not
we
AI.
were
Right.
a couple generations too late. We missed that.
right. So that's why I have to stay on top of
But at
all
least
these
we know
things.
how to
This is
write
why I
and
need the
read
meta
now.
sunglasses.
We can read and write though.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But that's not necessary anymore.
Artificial intelligence, and a lot of kids don't know this, is that it actually leaves watermarks behind. So there are detection.
There's signs.
Yeah, there's detection software. and
Watermarks. What
things
does
like
that mean, like exactly?
So, like,
A digital mark, probably.
right, it leaves a digital mark behind so it can be detected. So, you know, like if you look up a stock image online and it'll have those, you know, a design or
Right.
a logo or something across it, so you can't steal it. It's the property of someone else. So this leaves a hidden digital watermark behind
Oh, wow.
so it can be detected.
Wow. That's
So when they
interesting.
submit their work, do they submit it like as a digital file to you now, or is it submitted as really
It
as a
depends
paper?
on what it is. So again,
like
see,
turn it in. Do you
amazing
guys
to
use
me.
turn it in?
yes, we use Google Classroom.
Yeah, Google
Yeah.
Classroom. I used a thing the other day. It was a plant. I was interested in knowing what it was. I took a picture of it. It told me what. I mean, it's like
Exactly.
It's really amazing now. You know, you don't need your World Book anymore, encyclopedia.
Definitely not.
ChatGPT is going to, if Google doesn't get changed, it's going to replace Google. People are going to go to ChatGPT
But doesn't ChatGPT
because Google tells you where to search for something, but ChatGPT tells you the answer.
But doesn't Google
You know?
also? Doesn't ChatGPT use Google to
use the inform- right, they have a-
synthesize the information to
Correct.
give you the answer?
Yes,
It like samples the internet to get that information. It needs to process it to whatever NVIDIA processor has done
Right.
to make it churn out that answer. It's fascinating.
The other cool new thing that I've been doing with ChatGPT is, like I said, I've been doing a lot of stuff around the house this summer. We finished off our porch. We did some painting, different projects. So if we weren't sure what something was going to look like, took a picture of it before and told ChatGPT, show me what this would look like if we painted it this color. And it comes up, and so you get sort of a preview, a sneak
Wow.
peek of what something will look like. It's actually been a really helpful tool
Yeah.
in
So in
doing
other words,
things
you just
around
take
the
a
house.
picture of your room and say, if we painted this color from Benjamin Moore, number
Right.
55.
Exactly what I did. Show me what this wall would look like
incredible.
painted in such and such a color, and it
You
pops
just
right
opened up
up.
a whole new world for me.
I think the future of medicine is going to be affected by ChatGPT
Oh, I'm
as
sure.
well, AI, because you
patient
know, I
has
mean-
these 4 symptoms. Boom. What does the patient have?
Right. Well, so that for internal medicine for sure, but also for radiology and
Right.
pathology, you can put the slides in or the images into a computer, and it can.
It's going to be better than your eye.
Better than naked eye, and I think that software is already out there. Fortunately for us, they can't replace there's no robotics yet. I mean, there's some
But there is
robotics.
robotics, but
there's some robotics in spinal surgery, but not to the extent like the Da
Can't
Vinci
do
is
a
in
robotic surgery of the spine.
Right.
you
Not
know.
yet.
Not yet. I'm sure that'll
Not yet.
happen.
I mean, there are guidance systems that are available in spinal surgery.
yeah, you can
to
put
guide,
your screws
to guide
in
you to put the
correctly
screws
and
in.
things like that, which we don't use because we.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a
them
fellow,
in.
there was a stealth system that sophomore Danik had that would help guide you for insertion of screws. But, and there was another group of surgeons who would not use that. And they said, you know, we're the ground forces. We like to go in. We don't use stealth. We do it the old-fashioned way.
We use it with X-ray guidance under fluor. We use fluoro, live X-ray to
We're
make
our
sure.
own. We don't need artificial
And you have to
intelligence.
feel.
We have our own intelligence.
But yet again, we don't. You know, but when you put in certain screws that are more difficult, like in the thoracic spine, it is helpful to have that kind of.
But you're not as familiar with that.
You just don't do as much. It's not as common. Lumbar surgery and cervical surgery is so much more common than middle back surgery. You know, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
But this is what we try to teach the students too. So AI can't replace humans, but it can, augment an experience, or it can help you visualize things. It can help you improve things, but it's not going to replace.
Well, what it does is it makes your job easier. You want to write a letter to somebody, you can put in what you want to say, and the ChatGPT will churn out a beautiful letter.
Right.
So,
It's pluses and minuses.
Exactly.
There's discussions. There's ethical. Everything. It goes into
Right.
hand. But it's a really
it's an exciting time.
very important time. I'm glad we got to
I think it's going to change the world.
we got to live through this change. It's interesting. Where kids are going to see is what it could be really interesting. So
Right.
There's going to be self-driving cars.
I'm not ready for that one yet.
It's going to happen.
I don't know if I'm
It's already
gonna,
happening.
I can see you getting into one for some reason. Telling me how amazing it is.
So the funny thing about that is
They
when
already
my
have them.
husband was in, I think, 4th or 5th grade, he had to write a paper about something, and he
future?
wrote about
self-driving
and wrote
car?
and he got an F on it because
It's unbelievable.
because the nun said it was too far-fetched.
He was ahead of his time.
So he failed that paper, but there you
You
go.
should go back now and get a.
That's what he always says. I wish I could go
Far-fetched.
back.
He used his imagination.
Nope. She said it was too far-fetched, and he failed the assignment.
I think in certain cities they have like these self-driving taxi cabs.
Well, like in San Francisco,
Right.
Arizona, San
Right.
Francisco.
people go in it, but apparently
Temu.
there's some issues though. There's some issues still.
It's in its infancy, but it's coming.
I think there's a kill switch though in there. Like if something's really bad, like you can really stop it or something, or kill the whole
It's
thing.
going to revolutionize
Probably so.
transportation.
Right.
Yeah, well, I still like driving my car.
Me too.
I still like getting into a yellow cab in the city and telling him where to go. So, look, I mean, you're raring to go for your vacation,
Yes.
and you're doing great 7 months post-operatively. You feel like your foot is back to normal?
Oh, absolutely.
No
Yep.
pain down the leg? No
None.
numbness?
Nope. No,
No
I'm
pain in
doing
the
really
back?
well. Nope, not at all.
That is great. So we obviously picked Mrs. Higgins because she's a wonderful example of our surgery. Everybody is exactly the same, has this beautiful outcome.
Plus, she's interesting.
Plus, she's got all
She's
kinds of
interesting.
interesting
I don't know
things.
about that,
She's a
but
school teacher.
We haven't had a school teacher yet, and it's great
I
to
know.
have a school teacher because school teachers are hardworking, regular people. They have lives, and it's good to know that they have lives outside the school. It's
Well,
always
it's good. It's always satisfying to help a school teacher or a cop or somebody who's really helping other people.
it's always fun to see your teacher in like the supermarket, like you never
In the wild.
outside the school. Like you realize
wild.
It's like
That's what you call it, the wild.
Yes.
because you feel like these teachers are like you put them on the pedestal, like your teacher.
Right,
and
you
then-
can't believe
and
a
then you
teacher's
see them,
alive.
They're actually buying a
She's
a
going on a
box of
cruise with her
Cheerios,
kids.
and she's going on a cruise with her kids, and that's
I think
great.
that's the way it used to be years ago, but now I think it's a little more. I think we're not so.
We don't idolize them as much.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I think they're a pretty important job. I have to say,
Thank you.
My wife wishes she had been a teacher. That was like her ideal job. But she said, my mother.
She made her become a radiologist.
A
shame.
She was sort of, but that's fine. She did good too. But she always wanted to be a nursery school teacher.
And that's
bad,
funny.
too.
That's almost my story too. I always wanted to be a teacher. My sister and I used to play school. I used to give her homework.
You were the oldest sister, obviously.
Obviously. And I had a guidance counselor in 7th grade who, when they bring you in for that, what do you want to be when you grow up
Right,
kind
right.
of appointment. And her exact words, I'll never forget them. She said, "You are too smart to spend the rest of your life sitting behind a desk wiping little kids' noses." And she said, "Find something else to do with your life." And I was crushed because that's the only thing I ever wanted to do. And
You want to be a nursery school teacher.
not nursery school, but elementary school.
elementary.
Yeah. And so I really thought long and hard and thought about other things.
Pretty rough thing to say to somebody.
Oh yeah, she was pretty rough.
Sometimes some people
That was-
say
that was-
pretty rough things to you to make you change your way of being.
Well, so anyway,
So I rethought a lot of things, and I ended up going into a completely different field. I majored in international business with a minor in French in college, and took my love of foreign language and foreign cultures and things like that, and then put that into what I was doing. And I worked for a pretty prestigious firm in the city, and I hated every single second of it.
Wow.
And my husband, who we were dating at the time, it was a Sunday at about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I went, "Oh." So what's the matter? I said, "Tomorrow's almost Monday." He said, "We still have Sunday. You're already thinking about Monday." He said, "You're
Already dreading it.
miserable there, right?" And
Yeah.
I was. And he said, all right, he said, you always wanted to be a teacher. Why don't you go back to school? And I said, oh, yeah, right. I'm going to go back to school. And I always say he lovingly nagged me. So every day, did you
Wanted you to
call?
be happy.
Did you call?
So you,
Exactly.
So you had to go get your
That's a good-
master's?
that's-
I went back to school. Yeah,
That's a
so
good
it's,
husband.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
thanks to him.
He supported you, and
in,
he,
in a
you're,
month,
you're probably making more money in the other field, but
Probably,
school
but-
teachers,
School teachers
it's
really,
a noble, it's a noble profession.
It's just it's unfortunate that the society doesn't reward a teacher like a baseball player.
Yeah. I
They
think
don't
a lot.
reward you like a baseball player.
Well, that's an
Baseball
argument.
plays-
That's an
baseball
argument I've
players-
been having for a long time because I feel like every time I operate with you, it's like a basketball game.
Baseball players
game.
are doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so thanks to my husband, I'm about to enter my 30th year of teaching.
Wow.
So
Wow.
Which district are you in?
I'm in Valley Stream District 13.
You don't look
Very
like you've been
nice.
teaching for 30 years.
Well, thank you.
Well, I think
appreciate that.
I bet you're a great teacher, and
Your students are lucky to have you.
I'm so happy that you're back and
too.
doing things you love to do, and that's what we love to see. That's
And-
part of makes our job great.
Thanks to both of you because that was really, I think it was, you said it was a lot with me, but I think it was the three of us together.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate everything that you did for me.
And thank you so much for coming today. I really,
Thank you.
we really appreciate you.
Thanks
coming
for
out,
having
we
taking
really
your time to
appreciate
come.
you coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time.
All right. So this is basically the conclusion of our 11th episode of our podcast, The Spine Bros.
Don't forget to like our podcast
like our
and
podcast, right.
subscribe to it.
Exactly. So we can get that out on
Make
the
it one of your favorites.
social media aspect.
Apple, Spotify,
It's the way to go.
YouTube,
Yep.
Yeah,
every platform.
absolutely.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Thank you.